Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I have got a bunch of easy peasy, super simple Christmas crafts that I'm going to be doing. I've started pulling out my Christmas decorations and decided I needed some signs. And I'm kind of doing this on the fly today. So I'm going to show you really quick what all I'm going to be using. I am using, you can see, some black Readi-board foam core. And the reason I'm using this, and you see I have a bunch of scraps, is that I had 2 sheets and these scraps of a really dark black. And then the next batch of black that I got is almost like a charcoal gray. So I'm going to be trying to use these last 2 sheets and these dark scraps all up today. A couple other things I'm going to be using here. You can see I have a bunch of 1-inch wide painted out strips. These are scraps from other projects. I'm going to be trying to use these up, which is part of why I said this is going on the fly. So you guys are going to be doing measurements and things like that with me to try to use those and these. In order to get those, the simplest way that I tend to do that is I go ahead and paint out my 3-inch strips. I like using the 3 inches because they're an easy for me to hold and maneuver and paint kind of size. So I typically will paint a bunch of these and then cut them down to 1-inch strips. So that's how I get to my kind of framing scraps. The videos for painting these are their own kind of independent tutorial. That way I can put way more detail into that. So I will try to link those below. These are scraps from a lot of different colors. And a few other things I'm going to be using. So I am a sucker for all the little wood raw pieces that all the craft stores carry, Dollar Tree carries. So I'm going to be using this piece on Earth Sign. I'm going to be using some of these smaller wooden snowflakes. I'm going to be using these 5-pack of wooden snowflakes. Those are all Dollar Tree. Michael's had their own options, and they had a couple different snowflakes. Theirs are 99 cents a pack, and if you use it with the 20% off your entire purchase, you get them for like 79 cents a pack. So a whole lot cheaper than even Dollar Tree. So I've got a variety of all different types of snowflakes here, and you could really pick whatever you want wood piece wise to go on your signs. This is more about showing you simplicity can sometimes work really nicely. I think these are going to be some very easy throw together crafts. Let me put my little scraps here to the side. And I'm going to start with the biggest one first, the easiest one. And I'm pulling out a full entire sheet. Now, guys, I have to work sideways here just for space constraints. So, everyone with me, tilt your head to the side. And hopefully you can kind of tell what I'm doing. So I happen to know that I had some 20-inch strips already cut down, so that works out really well for this particular project. So these are just 1 by 20 inch, and this is the shorter width. Mine are already painted out on the sides. So really quickly, what I'm going to do is come in from end to end here and glue these down. Now, you might want to know about the edges of this. So there's a couple things you can do. You can leave it white if you've got one that's not really banged up, because I'm only going to be doing this direction and framing it out. My edges aren't too bad. However, if they do happen to bother me, I will come in with a smaller sponge or paintbrush and dab the edges. This is just one of the Dollar Tree makeup wedges. And dab those edges really carefully. You don't want to get black paint on your foam core because odds are it's not going to match and it will show up. So there's a couple different ways. Take a marker, a permanent marker, and run down that side if you really want to. I'm thinking that mine's not going to bother me, but I do have a fairly nice sheet here. And my walls are light, so this is going to blend back to it really easily. If I do decide that it bothers me, I can come back in and do these edges. But I couldn't come back in if I hadn't finished out all the edges there. It's very hard to come in and do this inside edge. So my next step is just going to be to take my hot glue, and I'm just using Dollar Tree hot glue sticks. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this in place. When I say that this is such a super easy craft. And I didn't pre-measure anything to know what all I would be using, because I am doing this on the fly, and I just wanted to see if you guys would hang out with me. So I'm just going to continue to glue these in place. Okay, so that's pretty much our framing scenario. Now, here is what's going to be fun, and I wanted to show you guys a whole lot on this because I came up with several ideas, and I'm pretty sure of where I want my sign to go, but I did want to share those ideas, and I know I'm a little wonky out of the screen here, but I will turn it so you guys can see. So I wanted to start out, I knew I wanted to use this piece on Earth sign. Here's the really fun part about this. I'm not painting these at all. I love this raw wood against the black, and then this dark, more rustic looking wood. I love the different tones of this. It's very natural looking to me. So I wanted to come in and show you guys a couple things. Now, these are stir sticks for coffee. And I have several that I'm just going to bring in just in case I want to do anything with these. So these are very similar to popsicle sticks as far as there's a comparison. They're just a little longer. So I have both. That way I can just kind of show you some of the playing around here. This is where it gets fun. One or two things. You can go in and fill in that hole right there. If it bothers you with just a little bit of the Dollar Tree spackling, you can see I filled in one. It honestly, it didn't bother me either which way, and the color is so natural that you almost don't notice it. But I wanted to point that out really quick before I got too far into this. So one of the options I wanted to show was just coming in and doing very simply like this, you guys. And I'm going to turn you sideways while I make these designs and just kind of show you. I wanted to show you some of the small ones. And mind you that I might be a little cattywampus here. I'm working sideways. So I'm just going to bring in a couple of these. You can kind of see how this looks. It's very, very simple. Ultimately, my decision, I have a whole bunch of more options, and if you're on the Peppermint Cactus group page, I snapped photos of the different layouts that I liked, so I could like scroll through them and pick which one kind of caught my eye the most. So I'll be sure to put a lot more of those options up just to give you some ideas on kind of designing your own signs with just the things that I'm showing. But I know where I'm going to go with my sign, so I want to go ahead and at least get this portion glued down. And for me, just to kind of make sure that I'm not completely off on this, I want to find this center portion here. And I'm just going to come in with a pencil. And I'm going to lightly mark this at 15 inches up. And I was almost spot on where I put that line. So I know this is where my center point is. I can kind of balance everything from there. and that really helps me. And there we go. That allows me to know that I pretty much got this right in the center. This part right here looks like it's about my center, so I'm just lining that up with my little mark underneath. And my sign was a little bent, and it was a little ratty-tatty. I weighted it down and spritzed it with water, and it did unbend it some. It's still a little bent. However, I did have to sand mine down. It had fingerprints and things like that all over it. So to keep this natural raw wood look, I did have to sand mine down. So I'm going to coat this whole thing with hot glue, working kind of as quickly as I can. I have to coat my entire piece to get it applied because it is, the wood itself is warped. You would not have to put nearly as much as what I'm doing to get this thing to stick down ordinarily. It's so lightweight. But I'm hoping that the glue adhering it down will offset some of that warped bow. I got a little glue off there. So I'm going to look to see where my alignment is supposed to be. And I have to work quickly. And you can feel the warmth of that glue through here. No kidding. And I don't feel like I moved fast enough. Oh, maybe. Okay, so there we are. All attached. Worked quickly. If you get the little stringies like that in between there, come back in with a blow dryer and kind of shrink those up. It's a little easier to get them later. So for me, here is the design that I'm working with. I'm going to be using, I think this is the Michael Snowflake, but the Dollar Tree one would be just as pretty. I'm just going to use this one because I've got different uses for different snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open my little package and grab another snowflake out. This package had 7 snowflakes in it. This one from Michael's. There was 7 in it. And I'm just going to make the little holes part of my design here and align it this way. And I am going to turn funny against y'all again so that I can mark once again kind of where I want this to lay out. So I'm going to slide my ruler. This is about, it's about 1.25 inches up. And the center is right here, and I'm glad I checked that, or I would have been off. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this guy in place. I don't think there is a front side and a back side. I did go through some of the other pieces and sand them down a little bit before I got started. Just because they had some kind of rough little edges that I wasn't super thrilled about. So I'm going to pop this guy right in place. I didn't have to use nearly as much glue since that one wasn't warped and bowed. Can you see those two woods together? Or those two wood looks together? Same thing here. I'm going to come down at 1.25 inches because that's what I did my other. I'm going to line it up right here. And I'm going to just pop some glue on this one. Kind of wiggle that in place a little bit. So for me, I am going to come in with my stir sticks. Maybe you can see where I'm going with that. And I'm going to find a couple that are just about the same color, that don't have any warpedness. Sometimes they're not cut super straight. See, that one's got a little bit of off color. I know that seems like a little obsessive there, but I just kind of wanted them to blend. And I'm going to use 4 of these. And you could do this same thing with just regular popsicle sticks. But since I had these, I thought I'd use them. And I'm just going to do kind of the same thing here. I'm going to see where I need to measure up. I'm going to find the center of my snowflake there. That's about 3 3/4. Oh no, I'm off a little. So I'm just going to mark that there. Same thing on this side. As far as how far I'm going to come to the side, I'm going to see just how far over I can come. And that helps me get a pretty nice alignment there. Now I'm going to go in and pop some glue. Try not to squish out too much. And I'm just going to do the same thing, top and bottom, exactly the same way. Okay, so I've got all my little pieces glued down, and you can kind of see what this turns into. Here is the finished piece. Now, the only other thing that I could possibly suggest that I would want to add is I'm just going to take just a wire coat hanger. So I've got my coat hanger. I've cut down one side. I'm just going to cut a nice little section off of here to make a hanger for this. And I'm trying to do it where it doesn't go flying across the room. So all I did was cut that little section off. And I'm going to take this with just some mite. And I'm going to start bending that in half. Now, I could leave it like this. I do like to try to make mine a little more pointed. So I'm going to try to squeeze this as tight as I can. And then I'm just going to pull it back apart. I know that seems redundant, but it allows me to get a straighter angle here on my triangle there. Maybe you can see it now. So now that I've gotten that, the only thing that I would do is I'm just going to come here on the back. And just to help hold it in place, I've got like a little wood wedge. So just before I do this, one last measurement. I don't want to get this off centered. So we're at 10 inches to get that in the center. I don't even think I need that. I think I'm just going to go up like this. I'm going to hold that in place and put a whole lot of glue. Now this takes a little bit of time for that big blob of glue to kind of set in and harden. So I'm going to let this harden. Okay, so all I've done now is you can kind of see I came in with a little Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. And I painted all of that metal out, and I even painted over my little glue blobs. I'm just coming in now, touching that up a little, and voila, a finished piece. Now we're upside down again, guys. I'm sorry about that. I will try to work on that to a little better, but it's the only way I can reach the controls. So there is piece number 1, and I'm going to try to fit several more into here, and I'm going to continue to be using my black foam core. So I'm going to pull some of my scraps in and just see what all I have. Let's just see here. I've got all kinds of pieces. So the next thing that I want to work on, I really kind of want some pieces roughly around this size. This looks like a pretty good size to me. And I feel like I could do that out of this here. Pretty close. So I want 3 of these. And I'm going to tell you really quick what this size is. This looks like it's about 7.5 by, we're going to go with 7.5 by 11. So I'm going to cut 3 of these down to 7.5 by 11. So I have all 3 of my pieces cut down. And I went ahead and jumped ahead and cut some strips for each one of the ends, just like we did our larger piece. And I'm going to go ahead and start adhering those together the very same way, top to bottom. All of my edges are now glued to each end, and I'm going to come in with the same 3 style snowflakes. You could use all the very same snowflakes if you wanted to. You could just do one of these, multiple of these. It was more about showing that simple doesn't have to look basic. So I'm just going to come in and adhere each one down. I'm going to try to get it stuck down quick enough, roughly to the center. This fatter one is definitely easier to hit that glue on. Now I just need my little skinny Dollar Tree looking one. I'm going to try to pop that right in center. And pull my little glue stringies off. Now I want to show you all 3 of those together. The only other thing that I will likely come back through and do is either I'm going to put another metal hanger there, just like I did with the larger one, or just come in with some of this twine. I could use my beaded garland style like I have been doing with the Dollar Tree styrofoam filler. I could simply just hang it with some twine. I could prop them up any which way. There's lots of ideas to go with there. And then I'm going to keep going. So I'm all prepped for my next craft, at least in this grouping. I'm sure you're going to see quite a few more of these from me, but so far I've got 3 squares of 6x6 black foam core cut. I've got 1x6 in my faux wood strips, enough for 4 per square. So this is going to be our framing. I've got some more of the wooden snowflakes. These are the smaller ones that come in the packaging like this. I'm going to be recycling some ribbon. And the last thing is some kind of binder ring. whether you want to go really large or small. And that's pretty much it. This is going to be really simple. Once you cut your squares into 6x6 and you cut your strips down, the next thing I want to show you is how to get a 45-degree angle. And you don't have to do a 45 on this. You could just do kind of button them up like this. But it was easier for me to cut 12 of these 6-inch strips. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to miter that. So my strip is 1 inch wide. And I'm going to come over to this 1 inch mark. And I've made myself a perfect square there. Hopefully you can see that. Now all I have to do in order to miter this is go on the diagonal across that perfect square. And I'm going to do to the same thing on the other side. I'm going to come over 1 inch. I want the longest portion to be on the same side, so I'm going to go up to that point. And let me get this aligned. My little cutting board is warped here. And I'm just going to start above your cut, especially on these corners. Slide it down. And there you go. You'll do that to all of these pieces. And then go ahead and paint out your sides. So I'm going to be doing that. Okie dokie. So I have all of my edges nice and cut and mitered. I'm going to start framing these things out. This is pretty simple and straightforward. You might want to do a dry fit ahead of time and make sure that you're fitting pretty decent. I'm going to hope for the best, and I'm going to start gluing these things down. So I'm going to get my first one up to here. And then I'm just going to go all the way around. And you've pretty much built your entire frame piece. Super cute. My next step is to come in with my same paints that I had painted my wood strips with. I'm going to do all of my edges. I want to do this step now because the next step involves ribbon, and you want to give it a chance to dry so you don't get paint all over your ribbon. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to assemble all 3 of these and paint the edges and let that dry. All my little frames are now dry. All the edges have been nice and painted out and finished. So all I've got to do now is come in and add my little small snowflakes. And I took the little sticky adhesive pop dot thing off the back. The little 3-dimensional foam dot so that you'd be able to see through it instead of having that little white back show. And I didn't need any of the extra dimension, to be honest, since this little wood piece is dimensional itself. Oop, there goes my glue gun right to the floor. So all 3 of these are the same. And here's where they turn into something. So I zip tie my bows. That way, if I ever get ready to recycle them, all I have to do is take a little pair of nail clippers, pop that zip tie, and now I can recycle some of my ribbon. Hopefully I can get this pretty straight. A really quick rule of thumb, if you have ribbon that you need straightened out, If you use a hair straightener or have a hair straightener, you can run it across. Be careful with your more artificial ribbons like your polyester. This is kind of a seersucker cotton-like material, so I don't think that it would be a problem running it through my straightening iron. I'm gonna go ahead and straighten this out really quick. So you can see my ribbon's kind of straightened out, and you can kind of tell where I'm going with this. I'm gonna go ahead and trim a little bit off of this here at the top. And I'm not sure exactly how much I'm gonna need for my ring. And I just went in and painted my binder ring. I originally spray painted it with black, and then I went over it with black chalk paint so that it had kind of that, kind of the wrought iron look. So my ribbon definitely has a top and a bottom. I want to make sure that I end up lining this up properly. And I'm just going to come in, and it probably is easier if I flip this over. And your length is really going to come down to how much you want to space out your pieces on this. So the first thing I want to do is to have a nice clean edge. I'm just going to rub a little glue across that. And bend that over. And I keep forgetting to get where you guys can see me. And all I'm trying to do is getting that the little hinge kind of centered there. I'm going to pop a little glue on it so that it doesn't spin around on me. And I'm going to come in and flip this over and kind of tug that. You can kind of see I've got a little flyaway where my ribbon kind of frayed. I want to be sure to trim any of that off. And now the best way I can tell you to do this is start with your top and your bottom, and then go from there on how you want to space that out. And you can kind of see, you guys know me, I tend to grab things that I have handy, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to grab something that I have handy, which is my sanding block. A bit easier. I'm going to align this kind of with the line on my desk. I'm going to go ahead and put a little glue down and get my first little piece pretty much centered on. And maybe you can see I'm kind of stretching that ribbon out from under it. And just to make that a little easier so that it all lays nice and flat, I'm just going to come in this back side. Careful not to burn yourself when you're touching ribbon, because the hot glue will definitely soak through. And I'm just going to do this all the way up. Typically, I either tend to try to fit here to here, and then center one there. But since I have this little guy to help space me out, I should be able to just hold it here in place. And I want to make sure that I'm kind of lining it up in the same spot there. And I'm still pulling my ribbon nice and tight underneath it. And then same thing on this one. I'll go a little wider on that one. And now you can see how this is. This ribbon already had a dovetail on it, but it is frayed some, so I am just going to trim that down a little neater and get me a much nicer dovetail. So now we're down to the last little bit of detail, and I've got some Dollar Tree buffalo check / gingham ribbon that I used to make a bow. I've got some of the Dollar Tree larger jingle bells and some twine. Sorry, that was extreme close-up, guys. I grabbed a few little pieces of greenery that I rubbed a little bit of chalk paint on the end of. These aren't even anything spectacular greenery-wise. I'm going to come right up here by my little hanger. I'm going to turn this away for me. And I'm just going to come across, add a little glue. I'm going to pop my greenery right there. It's still a little wet. The only other thing that I grabbed, and you could find these anywhere, is I had some of these little white styrofoam berries that fell off of a pick. That just came off of a random floral pick. I'm just going to use those. I've got my little buffalo check gingham bow. I'm going to pop it across there. And one last thing that I did is I just took 2 of those bells. I tied them on some twine. You can see they're just on one length of twine. I'm going to kind of fold them in half. I guess I probably should have did that before I put my bow down. Let's see if I can still get it off. Oh, yep, it's still gooey. So I'm just going to knot those to shorten that string a little bit. And I think I like where that pretty much falls. I'm going to slide this down so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to glue these guys in. Pop my bow back in its little spot. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add these little fake styrofoam berry things that had fallen off of something else. And clean all my glue strings off. That is the one thing about the Dollar Tree glue. It does seem to be really stringy to me. So here you go. I can't really get it the long way, but you can kind of see how cute is that. And it really works with our other pieces. If you remember, all of these will be cute coordinated pieces. So I hope this gives you some ideas. This is a look that I'm really loving. I'm really loving this raw wood against this wood against this black. So you'll be seeing a lot more projects along this line from me. And that's pretty much all I got. I hope you guys get a chance to do some crafting today, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.